give another talk about how fascism almost won the fight in 1939 and 1940, and how many industrialists and financiers, including my uncle, who had negotiated those lucrative contracts, had not banked on the United States entering the war. It didn't really enter that war until early 1942, though it was attacked in December 41. The world would have been a very different place by today if Hitler had been allowed to completely defeat the Bolsheviks in Russia and establish fascist capitalism throughout Europe, and yes, with a collaborationist United States, where fascism had become dangerously close to taking over. If Wendell Willkie had won the U.S. presidential election in 1940 and not Franklin Roosevelt...
Excuse me, I'll be right back. I have
to
make a speech next door.
I am convinced that if he had won the election then, Hitler would have had free reign in Europe. The Republican Willkie's policies were totally isolationist and especially capitalist, very similar to the future Republican presidents Nixon, Reagan, Bush Sr., and Bush Jr. But we all know what happened and how the Second World War ended. After World War II, there was a brief rise of the left. Throughout the world, there was agitation for liberation and emancipation from colonialist bondage. Haiti was already independent, but Jamaica was not, India was not, most of Africa was not. And the left in Haiti was not quiet. In 1946, the newly elected president, Estime, was a populist and he was black, and he was brilliant and he espoused socialism. However, he was not, of course, the preferred president of the Haitian elite and therefore not of the newly victorious American masters, who solidified their ties with the Haitian bourgeoisie. In fact, I draw a parallel between the rise of right-wing McCarthyism in the United States, the emerging Cold War, and the removal of the populist Estime in Haiti. By 1950, the Haitian elite was solidly on board with the right wing of the United States elite. Historically, the elites throughout Latin and South America have always been the proxies and the ambassadors of the great powers today represented by the OECD. There was a genuine communist party in Haiti in the 1930s and 40s and 50s before Papa-Doc Duvalier abolished it. And there were unions. In the 1950s, my parents left definitively for New York under Magloire because they were very liberal, very progressive, and they were openly criticizing the government. They were very close to the power structure, however, and when the fascist Magloire turned the heat up, they left. We must remember that by the 1950s, most Latin American countries were following a right-wing fascist path in the name of combating communism and the Cold War. There were people agitating who were avowed leftists. So in the 1950s, people like René Depestre, our current Governor General's uncle, her favorite, and other young leftists, including socialists, Leninists, and Marxists, were agitated. Even Duvalier, the middle-class doctor, not yet president, but as a candidate in pseudo-elections in 1957, that he would win, was playing the populist card. However, the right wing of the elite, quite fascist generally and in tune with other right-wing elites throughout the Americas, including the United States, had one objective, and that was to protect their commerce and their privilege in league with the nations of Europe and, of course, under the new power, America. So immediately following World War II, we had Estime's election as a people's president in 1946. Many make the parallel between him and Aristide. Now, the United States is often presented as the imperialist power, and the record shows overall that it is. I must point out that even in the United States, there is a constant struggle between progressives and conservatives, though the capitalist conservatives seem to win out overall, especially when it comes to the projection of U.S. power overseas. I'll just take a couple of minutes before I finish to just...
You have to, but you can continue till Barry comes, okay?
Good. So very interestingly, the U.S. had a presidential election in 1948. The United States Progressive Party in 1948 was a political party that ran former Vice President Henry Wallace of Iowa, for president, and U.S. Senator Glenn Taylor of Idaho for vice president in 1948. We must remember what was happening during the 1940s in the Canadian prairies with Tommy Douglas. Idaho and Iowa were solidly part of the Midwest. So there were U.S. elections in 1948 with the Progressive Party, which was formed with an eye toward electing Wallace as president. The Wallace-Taylor ticket was also supported by several other small parties, such as the American Labor Party of New York. Wallace's platform advocated an end to segregation, full voting rights for blacks, and universal government health insurance, 1948. His campaign was unusual for his time in that it included African-American candidates campaigning alongside white candidates in the American South. And during the campaign, Mr. Wallace refused to appear before segregated audiences or eat or stay in segregated establishments. Now, of course, they lost. The Democratic candidate, Harry Truman, won that election. He was a blue dog Democrat. All of this is coming back to us again, all right? So, there was a backlash. And I'm going to finish on this. I could go on for another minute, but I'm going to just finish on that. The Republicans backlashed, and we know what happened after that. They really took over in the 50s. Even though you had Kennedy, who was assassinated, the Republican right wing just barged on through the 60s, the 70s, right up to the day. So what we have is American interventionism on behalf of the capitalist Republican regimes. You know that, we see it. But even right to this day, we have to remember that it is the elites, whether it's Haiti, whether it's Dominican Republic, or Honduras, where we have just seen the president leave. It is the elites of those countries who are acting as proxies and ambassadors for the capitalist right wing that are responsible for getting rid of any socially progressive candidate that comes in. And that's probably what's going to happen with President Obama as well. And I'll just end on that. Thank you very much.